Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our 30th of hopefully many episodes of Bardadvice, a D&D slash TTRPG slash life advice podcast, wherein I, Charles Chaz Yazik, the DM, the Bard, however you may know me, do my best to answer your questions. I hope everybody's doing well. Good to see all of the regulars. Hello, everyone. River, Cat Jazz, Unknown, Pirate, Bird, Chris, all the Chris's that are out there, welcome. So, as we like to do at the top of the show before we get started into this Nerdy 30 episode, is we like to remind everybody of the email, which is bardadvice@gmail.com. The way you get questions answered is by sending them via email to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice, if that helps you remember. It's helpful for some. If you want to get some merchandise, you can do so by heading over to manshorts.com. And if you would like to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you may do so via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo, all of which are Yazik, Yahzick. I've been making good progress on the album lately. In fact, I'm not quite ready to reveal it, maybe next week, the album cover. I've been tweaking it. I'm working on it, and so it'd be nice to have that out there just to let people know that it does indeed exist, or it will. So, for Art Corner this week, hello, Jay. Hey, everyone. Let's see. For Art Corner this week, we are going to be talking about a game, actually, and I kind of put this one together at the last minute, but I wanted to recommend it to everybody. If you are someone who was into those old school shooters, I would definitely recommend this game, Battlebit. It's on Steam. It plays like the old FPS games from like the early 2000s. Like those old school, I don't know, around like the Halo 3, like Call of Duty era. But it's super fun and crazy, and it's like Minecraft, like 64-bit. But it houses a really high number of players, so it makes for a really, really fun game. So if you're into those kind of games, I highly recommend it. It's Battlebit, and I'm pretty sure it's on sale right now. Also, let's back up a bit because I got a little ahead of myself. I didn't do everything that we typically do at the top. I should have been listening to my notes more. And by listening, I mean reading them with my face. Before we move forward any further, I would like to extend a thanks to all of our patrons, all of our members on the channel. Super chatters. Everyone just for listening. Please don't forget to like, comment, rate on your respective platforms, subscribe, and share the podcast. We're a little bit out of order, shaking things up on episode 30. Did I get your comment on TikTok? I don't know. I'll have to go through them. What's your username on TikTok? 007 GoldenEye, Perfect Dark. Well, maybe that's a little too early. More a little later. More later 2000s. Later, early 2000s. That makes sense. Anyway, get Battlebit. It's cool, and thank you for everybody for listening. I will go and check it after this, Pirate. I'll make myself a note. So, moving on into questions, I think, because that was pretty easy. Yeah, the Art Corner was just a game. And the first question, I think, kind of lends itself to maybe leading into a bit of what might be, I don't know how I want to do it, but let's just get into the first question and see what it is, and then we'll all decide collectively. The first question is from Ash, and Ash asks, have you ever considered doing a segment of the podcast where you talk about D&D or TTRPG news and current events? My partner and I love the podcast and videos. Thank you for your time, effort, and advice. Thank you for the question. So I think that I have mentioned before that maybe we could make kind of a segment that would cover any kind of big stuff that's going on. And when I got your question and I thought about it, I feel like I kind of do a pretty okay job of sticking with relevant topics. But that being said, while I don't know that I will make a specific separate segment for it, I can tell you that I'm going to make it a part of my routine, and I already have, which I'll show, we can talk about in a minute. But I'm going to make it a part of my routine to kind of stay up on what's going on in the nerd sphere. I kind of already do, because I'm a nerd. But I'm making it a part of my routine to have something that's kind of relevant to what's going on in the space. And that said, let's talk about this. I don't know if anybody else has heard of this, but I saw this article that was published this morning. Serious Dice announces Dungeons and Dragons Acererak's treasure. I'm very well butchering that. Serious Dice announced D&D Acererak's treasure, a new blind draw dice product for retail in October of 23. It's a new licensing agreement with Wizards, which allows them to produce officially licensed D&D sets, or rather officially licensed dice sets for Magic the Gathering and D&D. Display boxes come with 25 treasure packs, and each of the treasure packs in the box comes with a set of 7 dice, a metal coin of sorts, and a D&D dice bag. Evidently, the dice sets in the treasure packs have different rarities: common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. There's 60 possible dice sets and 18 unique coins that can come in these treasure packs. Yeah, to start. Acererak's treasure display boxes retails for $500. Well, $499.75. And individual treasure packs are retail for $19.99. So that's a thing that's happening. What do people think about that? How do people feel about this? Personally, I'm not blown away or surprised. It seems like it's just another kind of a cash grab. I'm kind of surprised that they've not done this before. It seems strange that it would be new. Loot box cash grab. Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty in line with what they've been doing. But I'm kind of surprised that it's taken as long. Keep money where you can get better dice cheaper. Yeah, no doubt. It does seem insane that it's like, hey, give us $500 for a box that might have some cool dice in it. Or you could just buy dice. I don't know. It seems like maybe they are underestimating the... Maybe they just assume that, like, oh, well, people collect this stuff, so if you make it, they'll buy it. And it's like, that's kind of true. Not necessarily. I can't imagine that that's going to sell as well as they think, but I don't know. It's a little pricey for basically... Yeah. No such thing as too many dice. You have too many dice. It's collectible, I guess. Maybe they're going to try and start a new thing with it. It's very likely that they're just doing this kind of box just to kind of see how it goes, see how it sells. That if it does well, then they'll just keep it going and see why not. It does seem like it's a little late. I think that there are a lot of dice companies that have established themselves in the marketplace. So, yeah. I don't know if it's going to go as well as they might think, but that's a thing that's happening. And those are my opinions on it. River says it's a shameless cash grab. Well, again, it seems to be in line with their behavior lately. I'm interested. Anytime I see little things like this, these little signposts along the way, like the Pinkerton thing and like this, it's like, man, what is one going to look like when it's like official? I think it's going to be weird. I think it's going to be like, wow. pay monthly, and get a username to log in and play. Just like a game. All right. Well, thank you for the question, Ash. And there's some information. There's some news. Let's get into some actual advice questions, though. This first one, well, we already did the first question. The second question is from Thomas. And Thomas asks, thanks to you and the Man Shorts crew for all that you do to bring funny to the TTRPG space. Oh, well, thank you. That's nice. On to my question. I came across a recent post on RD&D about a DM who insists his player take damage from slowing down too quickly from the spell Featherfall. It was my understanding that the entire point of the spell is to avoid damage. Who's right? So this interested me when I got this question. I actually got this question, I think, the day before yesterday. And so I tracked down the Reddit post, and I found it. So this is the original Reddit post. This is from like a week ago. And it's by Unfair Turtle, which is kind of a cool username. My DM tried to make my character take damage even though Featherfall was used on him. To make a long story short, we were fighting a minor villain that I pissed off by calling her names to draw attention to myself. Was a war cleric trying to buy some time for my low HP party. She then proceeded to grapple me, fly 60 feet in the air, then teleport another 60 feet and dropped me. So we're 120 feet up, yes? At this point, all was going according to plan. My character was fully ready to die. The artificer in the party then says he has Featherfall and his reaction to use it, so to my surprise, my character was going to narrowly survive his almost guaranteed death. The DM then tried to argue that you would still take damage from slowing down so quick. I said that's dumb because we're playing a fantasy game with magic and the spell says nothing about that happening, but he was adamant. It took the entire table to convince him that he was wrong. The whole situation left a bad taste in my mouth because I felt like it was trying to punish my character and the party for playing smart and having backup plans. Well, to be fair, your party wasn't playing smart and having the backup plan so much as your artificer was. But TLDR, the DM wanted me to still take fall damage after being dropped 120 feet. But getting Featherfall casted on me by arguing that I would be slowing down too quick. So I guess there wasn't a point in doing the TLDR if I read the whole dang thing, huh? So I think that from a raw standpoint, the DM is wrong. I think. So let's look at Featherfall, because I wanted to look at Featherfall, and I'm assuming these days I'm assuming everything's played 5e, but whatever. It's not too much different than 3 and 3.5. It's more complicated, but anyway, in 5e Featherfall, it's first level spell. Its duration's a minute. Choose up to 5 fallen creatures within range. Fallen creatures' rate of descent slows to 60 feet per round until the spell ends. If the creature lands before the spell ends, it takes no falling damage. It can land on its feet, and the spell ends for that creature. There's not anything in Raw that says anything about taking damage from that. Now, Chris, in the world of magic, physics takes a back seat. True. And I did want to make another point here, because I think that this can be a good lead into the next question, but also just kind of getting a grasp of the DM as to being the one that has the final say. So I have been in myself in a position as a DM a number of times where I have either skirted around, ignored completely Raw for the sake of story, for the sake of the party, for any number of reasons. Because I do believe at the end of the day that the DM is the final arbiter. In this case, what it sounds like to me, and I really should be answering this based on the notes that I wrote down, is that the DM was probably trying to kill the player. And you mentioned, or rather the person who posted the Reddit post mentioned that their player was prepared to die. I'm sure that your DM was prepared to kill you. So don't retcon killing your players, I guess. Not with player deaths, certainly. You know, the artificer bailed that person out. It's that, you know, that stings, but it seems silly to kind of throw in a rule about like, oh, well, you know, you feather fell too fast. That was too fast of a feather fall. Your feather fallen feather fall feather fell fall. Too fast. I don't know about that. How fast were they falling and casting Featherfall? I think Featherfall should be... Yeah, that's also a thing, too. It wasn't clear if, like, the Artificer... I guess that they were the only one that got picked up and thrown. And if that's the case, then the Artificer would have been casting it on them from the ground. Meaning that they would have had to have at least fallen half of the way. If it's a 60-foot range for the spell. He should have either A, used a reaction to counterspell Featherfall. Oh, that's a good call. Or B, used a legendary action to negate the effect. Maybe it was out of legendary actions. DM, I make calls on the fly. Neither me or the player has the text or the spell in front of them. However, in this case, it's obvious that the spell is meant to be used for the exact case. Yeah, pretty much. It's a parachute. That's what it is. And so, in my opinion, I think that... Yeah, the DM was probably just salty because he was like, yes, I'm rid of this this war cleric. Or, you know, it was a mess around and find out situation where the DM was like, oh, okay, well, you want to goad the villain, then you're going to die. And then the Artificer's like, I don't think so. So, yeah, I think Featherfall is... I think the DM was in the wrong here. And clearly, right? If the rest of the table was involved in convincing this DM that they were in the wrong, yeah. It's a tough thing to swallow. But like I said, this is also another thing about establishing what people are there for and what the goals are, etc. So that's going to lead into the next question. Don't parachutes exist in D&D? Oh, I'm sure. Actually, that's a good question. Do they exist in the base game? Somebody look that up. Are parachutes an item? They should be. So, moving on to the next question from Chris, which was the one that I thought was relevant and a good lead-in. And I think we've had one similar to this in the past, but I don't know, probably not in a long while. So, let's talk about it. Chris asks, what are some essential things that should be discussed at session 0? So thank you, Chris, for the question. I made a few notes here to answer it. Also, Chris, this was a question in your email of questions today. One of those top questions was heavy stuff that we can talk about next week. I would like to, just because we've got other stuff going on here, and I want to talk about that stuff too. Thank you for all the questions you always send, but I lost my train of thought. You asked about session 0. That's right. Here we go. Game expectations, boundaries when it comes to gore, sex, religion, and politics, and scheduling. Those are the 3. Expectations for the game, where everybody stands for what are we doing and what's the goal. Is this a try-hard thing? Are we trying to be edgelords? Are we genuinely just interested in having fun? And not only that, but also expectations kind of works into scheduling too, because it's like, how often are we doing this? When are we going to meet? How are we going to be communicating in the interim? And then, of course, boundaries when it comes to gore, sex, religion, and politics. I think that those are like the 4 cornerstones of like things that you would need to worry about. And when I say politics, by the way, I don't mean like actual IRL politics, because that's kind of, I mean, that's irrelevant to the game. It's more so about like what your political sensibilities are within the game structure. So, you know, are you going to be trying to do, are you going to are you going to be trying to do some weird out of pocket stuff? Like that's an important conversation to have at the beginning. Yes, scheduling. Let's see what chat says. House rules too. Yeah, that's a good call. Establish those early on, and that can save you a headache later, because if they're, let's say you've got a new player that's in, and they're kind of raw about it, they're very rules as written, and you forget to mention to them this particular house rule that you have, and then it happens at some point in the game and no one questions it, that can create drama. So make sure all of the house rules or table rules are out there. PC starting level is always a good thing to discuss. Yeah, so that too, obviously you want to talk about the campaign itself. But murder hoboing, attitudes towards other players' actions, keep it in the game. Cover homebrew rules. Phobias are also important. Didn't realize that one of my players had severe arachnophobia. Oh, that's a good call. Yeah, phobias are a real thing. Just in general, you know, have some... I think everybody has, you know, have a little personal responsibility for setting your own boundaries and making those voiced and making people aware of them. And also do your best, I think, to respect other people's. Unknown Valor, thank you for the $5 donation. And a note here, code of conduct, players respecting each other and making the game fun for each other. Getting a game started with a toxic player is the worst. Yeah. And that's the thing, too. Everybody, I think, has similar goals and desires for what they want from a party. I think a lot of people maybe just have those things in a different order of priority. So, again, good things to discuss. But moving on to the more actual mechanical aspect of things, beyond just the social aspect of what to talk about in Session 0, I think it's important for the DM to lay out a solid plot hook, a solid foundation for what's going to be happening in the campaign. And for the players, I think it's important to just communicate what you want to achieve with your characters. You don't necessarily have to build to the party. I tend to find myself doing that. I tend to kind of feel out what everybody else is doing and then kind of use that to do it. Use that information to build my character. But, you know, you may have an idea for a character in mind already, and you don't even really care what anybody else is doing, and that's fine, but just communicate that. Talk about your characters and how they're going to, you know, what their motivations are, I think, the reasons that they're there, their incentives as characters. Have the same kind of expectation conversation about the characters. What's your character doing there? That way, when you actually start and everything really starts going, then it's just kind of natural. You just fall into it. Everybody's kind of doing what we already discussed. DM doesn't tell them the story, at least tell them the kind of game it'll probably be. Notice that some players game for RP and others just rolling dice. True. Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things that I try to establish with the 3 characters in the Mann shorts and the D&D editions. You know, I feel like Sarah is just all about, let's just go in there and do as much damage as possible, and the mechanics of it, it's almost like she plays it like it's her versus the game. And then Lance is all about roleplay and doesn't care at all about the mechanics. And then I think the Waylon is kind of a balance between the two. So there's just, I think, those 3 types of players. Different people are there for different reasons. And, you know, sometimes people are there for reasons that aren't even involved in the game. You might have somebody that's just there because, like we had a question about that recently. Last podcast or the podcast before. A couple of podcasts ago. Maybe it was the follow-up about the person who said that, yeah, I don't really feel this game. I just like doing it because it's like, well, I'm hanging out with my friends. So, yeah, everybody has different incentive. That's why it's good to talk about all that stuff in session 0. Hello, Jay Trocious. Enjoy every aspect of playing the D&D. It is really fun. One thing you do with all your games is create a Google Doc for all the character gen info in your house rules and keep that doc available. Oh, that's a really great idea, Flint. Yeah, so like a living kind of document or a Discord. Speaking of Discord, we're going to set up a Discord. I don't know when that's going to be. Maybe we'll release that on 32 because I don't know if anybody remembers, but there's some special stuff coming up happening on episode 32. In fact, that the person who sent me the question about Grail campaigns, that keep your eyes peeled for 32 because it's coming. Magic the Gathering player archetypes: Spike, Johnny, Timmy, and Vorthos. Hey, Nebraska, how's it going? Welcome to the party. So, where are we? What are we talking about? Session 0. That's an answer, yeah. Hey, well, Nebraska, you fancy seeing you around here. We're about to do your question. It's a question of yours. So let's get into it. Nebraska says, good day, oh, great and powerful, handsome Charles. Oh, see, he's after me. Just thinking of ways to mix it up a bit. A free flow of ideas. He's already on my good side. This is good. This is smart. Everybody take notes. This is how you get me on the good side. Have you ever run a character with a disability, i.e. being deaf or blind, missing a limb, etc.? How would you build and run that? Example, illusion wouldn't work if you were blind. If you were unable to hear the scary noise, no fear. Many thanks for sharing all your wisdom, knowledge, and experience. Thank you for the question, Nebraska, and serendipitous that you just arrived. So I appreciate the question. It's a cool question and it's interesting. It occurs to me upon reflection of characters that I've played in the past that you could technically argue that, well, it wouldn't be a technical argument. Tantor, at least towards the end of the campaign, was disabled because he lost an arm. Or rather, he wasn't disabled, he had a disability, which is an important distinction and also an important thing that I put as a note at the beginning of all of this, is that this is the notes that I wrote down, so it's more cogent. Let's do this. It's important to remember that people are not defined by their disabilities, and neither should your character be. It might be worth speaking with someone that has that particular disability if you're doing it. You want to confirm with the rest of the table that there's not any issues with it. Don't make it a bit. I very much think that RPing a character with a disability is a great way to introduce unique and potentially challenging game scenarios and RP as well, not to mention that it just raises general social consciousness when it comes to remembering that people with disabilities exist and their existence is just as valid as everyone else's. So with all of that said and out of the way, I think that as long as you don't make it your entire character, I think that's a totally cool thing. I've never done it. It's not something that I've considered. So it'd be a unique challenge, I think, for the player, particularly if they don't have direct experience with it. And also for the DM, because the DM would have to keep that in mind. So the DM would have to be cognizant of the fact that, okay, well, one of these players is indeed deaf, so if I cast a spell that requires everyone to hear it, they're not going to hear it. That's going to add a layer, I think, of RP, or rather a layer of strategy on the part of the DM. It is a big challenge for the DM, yes. Many years ago, we had a player get cursed with missile attraction. We ended up getting him a ring of regeneration. Missile attraction. Whoa. Played an Afraid of the Dark with claustrophobic vampire and Call of Cthulhu. There There's a story reason for the missing limbs. Yeah, and I also think that the backstory is important too. You know, again, like it's not a characteristic. It's not a character trait if someone has a disability. So don't make it that. But it is a cool element. And I think that there are a number of different ways that could be explored, not just with physical disabilities, but also with mental illness or injury. Anything like, you know, I think of Studebaker Peppercorn, who comes up a lot. He essentially had dementia, if you had to do analysis on it. Current game I'm running used lingering injury rules, and one of your players had her eardrums destroyed. Yikes. About a decade ago, via good hits and bad misses, one armed barbarian got his stump cut off at shoulder. Jeez. I think that this coming on the back of the answer to Chris's question about session 0 and just like establishing that, I think that that's important to remember and kind of reiterate. Is just like, as long as everybody at the table is cool with whatever's going on at the table, then it's probably cool. Had a wizard who only had one eye due to his backstory. Yeah, there's tons of different reasons to do it. Don't just do it to do that. If you want to make that part of your character, then I think it's cool. And I think that it creates a unique challenge for both you as the player and the DM and the rest of the party. The rest of the party has to keep that in mind too. It's like with Studebaker wandering off. That immediately involves the rest of the party. It's beyond just that behavior or whatever I'm doing. It's more than just me. It's the rest of the party too. So I support the idea. I think it's an interesting way to bring some uniqueness to your RP as well as your mechanics in the game. So, alrighty. So the next question is from Peter. And Peter asks, we are about 7-ish months into our campaign, and I feel like I've hit a wall with my druid. It started great, but lately the character's progress, or lack thereof, feels stagnant. Sometimes I can feel myself fading into the background of the story. Any tips on how to reignite excitement for my PC? Well, thank you for the question, Peter. Sorry to hear that you feel like you've hit a druid wall. I would start in a few places. I made a few notes. You could change your alignment, or you could change your god. If you IRL are feeling a certain type of way or feeling kind of disillusioned with things, maybe your character is as well. That'd be a shake-up. You could take a level in a different class. That'd be fun. That'd be an interesting thing. Take a level in Bard or something, just because. And I also noted to coordinate something with the DM. So that's a good way to kind of reignite spark into your character's story in the campaign, among the party as well as within the story of the campaign. So, mechanical perspective of it towards a druid wall. Yeah, he feels like he's hit a wall with his druid character from a character development place. Yeah, you could coordinate something with a DM. I'd do that all the time anyway. I usually always have some like side thing going on with the DM, regardless of what's going on in the story or with my characters, just because, I don't know, I like that. Gives it a little bit more depth. Maybe that would help. Maybe first I would talk to your DM and just let them know that that's going on, because then maybe maybe it's effort on their part that's missing. Maybe they didn't even realize that, and they're like, oh well, I'll try and make an effort to involve you more. But if that's not the case, maybe you could do something that's off to the side. It's easier and less disruptive to the campaign as a whole for you to just make one of those minor changes with your characters. Why did you choose Druid in the first place? Hey, Druids are awesome. I love a good Druid. Augustus Montgomery was a Druid. Does the Druid have a goal? That's true. Does your character have incentive? You obviously have incentive because you're playing the game. Well, what's your character's incentive? If you are not Circle of Spores, perhaps dip into Necromancer. Oh, yeah. You could, can't you change your circle? Isn't that like some sort of a ritual or something where it's like 24 hours and you can change your circle? Somebody tell me that. Some druids are like crusaders, but less religious, more naturally, spiritually. Yeah, no doubt. And you could totally have a cool arc where like your character is like, abandons their god. Or maybe finds a new one. If your character isn't currently religious or has any kind of god or gods, they could finally, maybe they could discover a religion. That's a big thing for people. Religion is a big change, and it's something that can be done pretty easily, I think, from like an RP perspective. You could just be like, oh, well, And again, if you coordinate this with the DM, that's as easy as your character finding a book that is, the cover interests them, so they start reading it, and it's these concepts they've never considered or heard of before, and the next thing you know, now they're worshiping a whole new set of gods. Boom. You have like a whole storyline as part of the party now. And they'll take interest in that. Circle of the Moon you can change to different moon phases. So he wanted to be... Oh, wait. This is... You never played a bard until 5e? Wow, really? Yeah, and there's something to be said about that too, dropping into other classes, because that's, again, something that's not so quote-unquote disruptive to the whole campaign. I just mean in comparison to doing like side stuff with the DM that requires more scheduling and stuff, but meaning not to shake anything up about what you're currently doing on your schedule with playing is grabbing a class and grabbing a level in another class. And or changing your alignment, but that kind of, not necessarily. You could change gods that are the same, change from one god to a different god that's of the same alignment. You would need to change alignment. You could also not make it involve religion at all and just change your alignment. Maybe something happened to your character along the way in the campaign that's just caused them to be like, you know what? I'm done with all this chaotic good stuff. It's CN for me now. Like, I'm just not going to go out of my way to help people. That's development. That's something cool. So take any of those ideas and run with them. Friend made a goblin with PTSD that manifested as an imaginary friend. My druid that only existed in his mind to help him survive the world. Whoa. A fallen druid would be someone who no longer cares about protecting their ward or nature domain. But that could be a story to explain a new class, or it could be a redemption arc. Oh yeah, that's a cool one. Yeah, you don't even have to involve alignment or religion. You could make it a thing about, like, maybe the druid's given up on the forest. Or personal. Maybe they've given up on their family, or their family's given up on them, or their tribe, or whatever. However you want to do it. I think that there's plenty of easy ways to shake up a character's storyline. And I think either of those will point you in a direction. So thank you for the question, Peter. We have 2 more questions. No. 2 more questions? 1 more question? 1 more question, and then a follow-up. And then we're going to do a little chat. Make up a holiday your druid is observing and give yourself a limitation. Stay in animal form, or don't cast, or don't use weapons, don't speak, or only speak in song. Limitation breeds creativity. Oh, that's a good idea. The town around where the druid lives has destroyed the forest, and the druid lost his or her connection. Well, yeah, maybe the forest burned down and now your character's dead inside. Like how you're feeling about your character. Go forth and role play. I think any of those are cool ideas. Appreciate all the input from everyone as usual. It's like we've got a little advice army here. It's pretty cool. Hello, John Strand. Welcome. Thank you for joining. We're moving on to our 6th question already. Are we? I guess so. We're at question number 6. And this question is from, I don't know if it's Louis or Luis, but it's from Louis or Luis. And he asks, new DM here. With a few sessions under my belt, I'm wondering if you might be able to recommend some ways to introduce moral or ethical quandaries to the party. Something to challenge their alignments or their very character in general. Thoughts? Thanks. Thank you for the question, Luis or Louis. I made a note to it, so let's start there. Ooh, video games. That's the note I made. Only that was really a note just for me because it makes, I know what that means. But it's, okay, so it's similar to, I've played video games that have quests like this, right? Where it's like a side quest, so it's not necessarily main story stuff, but you talk to some person and they give you information. And so the next part of the mission is to go to this, I don't know, we'll come up with a bad example. Like, you come up to this guy and his name is Fred, and his buddy's name is Sam, and he's like, man, Sam stole my hat. You better go get it from him. And then so you go to Sam and you're like, hey, what's the deal? And he's like, what? He said that I stole his hat? Well, I didn't steal the hat. He stole my hat, and I stole it back. And so that's all to say that I like the idea of putting the players in a situation where they have to choose sides on something, because they've got to choose sides in this scenario. Now they've been presented with a situation where they've either got to believe Frank or they got to believe Sam. Somebody's lying and somebody's stealing hats. So they've got to get to the bottom of it. So inevitably they're going to have to pick a side. So I said 2 characters with noble goals or valid reasons behind their quests, make the players choose. It's presented sometimes as the trolley problem, the superhero problem. That's an easy way. I also put introduce an NPC or a DMPC that's the polar opposite to the party. So that could be kind of fun. So if you want to do something that puts them in maybe a moral quandary, maybe you present a character who has no morals. And just this character just starts doing stuff because that's how people with no morals are. And just see what they do. That's kind of a Molotov cocktail way of going about it, but it's an option. If you've got some players that are like, they tend to be nicer or more on the lawful or good side of alignments, throw some serial killer into the party that they just have to deal with and see how long it goes. It's like that show, right? Isn't there a show where like they do awful stuff just to see if people will like intervene and be like, hey, that's not cool? It's a bit of a weird show, yeah. I mean, I guess its intention is good. Show people doing the right thing, I guess, but I don't know, to create these weird fake scenarios where people are just like, oh, look, this awful human being, I better intervene and say something. NPC doppelganger. Have the BBEG trick them into helping them commit evil. Ooh, that's fun. Have the party take on a quest, but as they're midway through it, they start to realize they're being the bad guys. Yeah, I think we talked about that at some point. Maybe it was actually somebody that submitted a question and noted that had happened to their party. But isn't there some quote about that, about how you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain? Yeah, because the rogue might say, let him die. The cleric smacks him on the back of the head and say, no, we're not doing that. We're not just referencing honor among thieves. Yeah, probably. I feel kind of bad I haven't watched it again since it came out, since I saw it in theaters. I really should. I really need to. I should watch it just to like stay relevant in what's going on in that world, and be interested to see if they're going to make more movies. Because I think that they're set up to. They seem to me to be set up to. Show is called What Would You Do? Thank you. Also, wasn't What Would You Do a show when we were kids on Nickelodeon with Mark Summers? And now it's a show where they just like create these terrible social scenarios to see if people are actually like bold and or morally sound enough, more confident enough in their moral scruples to stand up and say something. Not making any movies with the Writers Guild. Yeah, man, that stuff's crazy. Well, the let me just say, I think Hollywood, the the powers that be, the quote unquote gatekeepers, the people with all the money, the producers, it's clear that they don't care, but it's also clear that they have a plan. Because if they didn't think that they wouldn't be able to do what they're about to do, then they would negotiate. The fact that they're being so blatantly bold about like that stuff, that Bob Iger guy from Disney came out and is clearly super out of touch with what's going on. But the reason I think they're being that way is because they know they can afford to be. You know? AI it's going to feel like it's snuck up on people. I'm going to just say that. In 18 months, we're going to be having conversations and people are going to be like, I just don't understand where this came from. And it's like, dude, it's been going on. It's just that, like you saw a viral TikTok of like a terrible video commercial that was made by AI. And so you think that that's all that AI is and or can do. But it's coming. Anyone else watch Oxen Venture? Negative. Well, the writers have been on strike. The actors now just went. Because they're essentially, I guess, saying that they're going to be replacing them with... It's gonna become a world where they just scan you once and then they've got you, and then at that point they're just paying you. They're licensing you for your likeness, for your image, to use you. And different people will have different value, just as they currently do, in terms of what their price is for use of their likeness. But testing publicly. Yes, it is still very dumb, but it is indeed improving scarily fast. And, see the paraplegic had tech installed. Yes, I did see that. There was a paraplegic who was able to walk again. He had a tech installed into his brain, some sort of a chip, and they used it with Bluetooth. He can walk now. It's coming. It's knocking on the door. Actors' voices for new content. I'm interested, yeah, because they already have it. At this point, I think that writers, actors, creatives in general that are hoping to be involved in that space, specifically like in physical approximation of LA and Hollywood, you're going to have to realize that that's going to be part of the thing now. It's not going to be a thing where you go in and shoot for 30 days or something. It's going to be a thing where you negotiate whatever the rate is for them to use you. You negotiate residuals or however they want to do it, just like they do already with movies. And the production is going to be 4 days. It's not going to be 6 months. Also, my wife and I watched the trailer for Napoleon earlier. That looks interesting. As well as the trailer for Wonka with Timothy Chalamet as Willy Wonka. That's going to be interesting. Oh, thank you very much, Nebraska, for the gifted memberships. Much appreciated to these people. grabbing there's some memberships. We appreciate having you around. Didn't Bruce Willis license his voice and it got used in Russian? Yes. In Russian propaganda? I don't know if it was propaganda, media. I don't know. There's apparently Bruce Willis's lawyer said that they didn't sign off on that. I think that there's still some legal battle going on about that. It's unclear. I've not followed up completely on that story, but that was the last I heard, is that his camp was saying, no, we didn't do that. But yeah, it was, I mean, his likeness was used. Whether it was legally licensed or not, it happened. That was a thing. I've seen that video, and it looks like it's Bruce Willis. Obviously, we know it's not because we have context, but it looks like him. So, the Wonka prequel. Yeah, I guess it is a prequel. They use AI for Val Kilmer in the new Top Gun. I think so, yeah. I think they did. And you know what else they did it in is this video. Oh, now I can't think of the dang name for it. Man. It's a... What is that song with Juice WRLD and Corday? It's new. Doomsday. Doomsday is a song by Juice WRLD, the late Juice WRLD, rest in peace, and Corday. And in it, it's Corday in the video, but they have AI'd Juice WRLD's face onto him for Juice WRLD's bars. So it's a song where they kind of go back and forth with lyrics. And during the video, it's obviously it's Corday the whole way through, but during the moments of Juice's bars, it's his face, and it looks like him. It's really bizarre. So, I mean, it's cool in a good way. But yeah, we're going to start seeing that more and more and more. And all of the money and all of the licensing of stuff is going to be about the likeness. It's going to get weird. Talk about everybody having a price. That is coming right down the pipe. All right, let's do a follow-up real quick, and then we'll do a little more chat. Thank you for the question about ethical quandaries, Luis or Lewis. I hope that gave you an answer. This follow-up is from Jen. Jen says, "Hey Bard, back on episode 22, I asked you whether or not our party should play a space or a Western campaign. Wanted you to know we took your advice and combined the concepts. It's a little more Galaxy Quest than Firefly, but it's been a blast. The best of both worlds is the way to go. Thanks for the advice and have a great day." So, cool. I am glad that you have enjoyed doing what sounds like a space western. Also, there was an attachment on that email, too, of a picture, which I've included. I'm assuming this is a DMPC that was included in that. So, it looks pretty cool to me. It's like a very space pirate. Also, more Galaxy Quest than Firefly. I totally relate to that. It's way more goofy and wonky and weird than anything else. But yeah, sometimes when you're on one of those debates between this or that, sometimes the answer is both. Can't stay. Oh man, sorry. Well, good night, Nebraska. It's probably already gone, but thank you. Much appreciated for the memberships. Don't think it's right to use the likeness of dead people unless they've sold it. Yeah, oh, totally agree. And that's going to be what it is, right? I think that the writers and the actors at the moment, and obviously I'm not crossing any picket lines when it comes to that stuff, but that's to say, they're going to have to get realistic about recognizing that, like, they're not going to make these concessions. These people with the money are not going to concede. If you go to somebody who's one of these like venture capitalists or one of these producers that has all these money, and you say to them, like, we can get you this for, we can make you more money for cheaper. Yeah, they're going to do that. And they certainly don't care about people's jobs or livelihoods. And it's an unfortunate reality, but it's just true. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but yes, I certainly people who are deceased, that's going to have to be, there's going to have to be laws written about that. But I mean, we're kind of behind with internet law in general, so I don't know what that's going to look like. But we shall see. They don't even really care about the film, just the money. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I kind of got that. I get that feeling with stuff like the Wonka movie, honestly. No shade to Chalamet. I mean, I'm sure he, he's a kid, he's great. Got great energy, that kid. But it's very clearly just like, this summer, this Christmas, we're still out of ideas. So we're going to remake something that was made 30 years ago, or tell a story about history, something that actually happened, and nothing else. Yeah. Society lagging behind technologies. Well, I think that AI over the years has attempted to make these little breakthroughs into becoming part of regular society or improving society, certainly when it comes to like art mediums, but nobody cares. There was no money in it before. Now there's money in it. That's why everything's changed. There was that, I think of that. There was a film that used to be on Netflix years ago called Future by Design about this. I think I've spoken about this before, about this inventor guy named Jacques Fresco, who I think has since passed on. This really smart guy, just clearly colored outside the lines. I totally relate to it. But on a kind of a different, this guy was way smart. This guy was like engineer brain, was making cool stuff. And so he actually developed the technology for 3D imaging back in the 70s. But Technicolor wouldn't buy it. Sorry to post off topic, but I really like the Drunk Before Noon series. Is there any plans to add a new season? I love all the content. Please keep it up. Thank you very much for the generous donation. There is plans for more Drunk Before Noon. It's a thing that I don't know. I'm not sure exactly why I've put it off coming back to it as long as I have, but it's something that needs to come back. And it's a thing that we need to bring back to. Also, I think it would be a format that would work really well and perform well on TikTok. So in addition to reformatting existing episodes, I'd like to make some new ones. Maybe put a little bit of a modern spin on it, and because we get to do stuff that we've not really gotten to do with Drunk Before Noon, like NFTs and crypto. And I am not actually drunk before noon. I've not had alcohol in over 6 years now. I mean, not that I've not had any alcohol since then at all, but yeah, I don't drink. Real world got too crazy. Drunk Before Noon became mild. Yeah. Relate to that too. That it's funny because it's true. There's truth to that. That's obviously not the whole reason, but no doubt there's definitely some of that in there, because it's like, stuff's so crazy. What is Chaz gonna say in Drunk Before Noon that's gonna like shock people these days? Was always there then, probably. If I was always there, then probably. But if I'm being like I am now and somehow got put into there, she is absolutely not. I'd never become them. Cook more with the alcohol that you have. You rarely pour a drink anymore. Yeah. Listen, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with alcohol. I mean, it is technically just kind of a poison. I think that there are people who are perfectly capable of having a drink. I am not one of those people. I am a person of excess in all areas of my life. And that's okay. But it just means that I can't drink. Are we going to see more LARPing or outdoor scenes on Sunday D&D? Well, I think you'll be interested to see what is coming this Sunday. Let's just say that. I'm excited for it, personally. Sunday, woo-wee, better buckle up, team. It's going to be a real fun one. Drank once this year, getting too old. Yeah, it's you can't do it like you used to be able to. I work with a guy who's 22, and he parties all the time. As you would expect, he's 22. But sometimes I remind him, I'm like, Get it out now, man. Do it now, my guy, because post 30, it's not so pretty. And then it just gets harder and harder because you're having I got stuff going on in my 30s with my body already. I don't need to be like trying to recover from a hangover in addition to that. Are you kidding? I mowed 3 times this week. 3 days of the week. I mowed for half the week. I was mowing. And so now my shoulder's broken. And so there's no way that the temporary relief and fun of being drunk is going to make up for the unruly hangover that I would inevitably have the next day. It'll just ruin my body. So definitely like get it out and party when you're in your 20s because your body can bounce back from it. But it gets less easy as you get older into your 30s. Oh, and hey, we're on episode 30. Nerdy 30. That's what it is. Hello from Halifax, Greg. Welcome. Welcome to the party. Try 40 plus. Well, hey, I'm knocking on the door. I'm 36. I'm on the other side. I'm looking up the other side. I'm looking up the hill of 40. You're going to make your own series, Edibles Before Noon, based on real life events. Yeah, but the thing about Edibles Before Noon is that like stoners aren't ill will. They don't have any ill will or bad natures. The Jazz Drunk Before Noon character is like a selfish lunatic. He totally has bad nature, bad ideas. 36 here too, 38. 60, can't stay past wake past 8 when you're sober. Oh. At least you don't have to figure out a title for this stream. Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Nerdy 30. Sounds good to me. I've really liked my 30s. I spoke with somebody recently who just turned 30. Or maybe they're about to. And they were like, oh, yeah, trying not to think about it or something. I was like, my 30s have been great. My 30s have been my favorite. I think that there were some certainly fantastic times in my 20s, and I probably on paper had more fun, but I feel like my 30s, I feel more comfortable in my own skin than I've ever been, more confident in what I want and know and love, and how I interact with the world around me. So as a result, it's just kind of been a little autopilot. I don't know. More content. 136 now. I don't even know how I get out of the grave every morning. Whoa, 136. You look great. You mowed all week here too on a 70-acre farm tractor. Yeah. Woo-wee, the heat. The heat's something special. And I didn't even I didn't even mow in the hottest parts of this week. But it was rough. I'm surprised I don't still have like a visible sunburn on my face. Because it was, well, maybe I do, but. So, here we are. Before we leave, why don't we talk about good things this week? Is that a new thing we're doing? I like the idea of doing that before we head out. Everybody, talk about what's good. What's going on good for you? Maybe it's something that happened today or yesterday or this week. I think for me, my good thing of the week, that's what we'll call it. Bardadvice, good thing of the week. My good thing of the week is that I am incredibly secure in a new idea that I've had with a friend of mine to develop a webcomic that we will ultimately turn into an animation and maybe more. I think it's a really, really cool, unique, interesting idea, and I'm excited about it. I can't talk a lot about it yet, just because we've got a bunch of things to develop, but just trust me when I tell you, it's gonna be a big one, and it's gonna be cool, and we can remember this episode, Nerdy 30, as the one where we talked about it first publicly. And River can confirm that the idea is epic. So, oh, thank you, Ruby, for becoming a dungeon crawler, becoming a member of the channel there. Feel free, anyone in chat that wants to get a cool little thing next to their name and be able to post neato stickers, to consider becoming a member on the channel. We appreciate it, Ruby. Just finished the Curse of Strahd campaign you've been DMing for 21 months last week. It was great and your players loved it. Well, that's good. Good for you. Now what? Now what? What's the campaign going to be? Your wife hit $1,000 on a scratch-off today? Nice. Good thing of the week is that you're working on your book again. Cool. Went and saw your daughters this week in Kentucky. Nice. Rocco got to sleep in. That's good. Let's see. Good thing is that game you're joining has decided to move forward, so you get to start doing build research now. Oh, fun. Oh, that's cool. You got the green light, so it's like, all right, time to go. You've been enjoying binge watching Mann shorts. That's a good thing. Well, good. I'm glad. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Love the new YouTube color banners. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Yes. That's a thing I was maybe a little insecure about just in general, but just found this podcast. That's good. Well, welcome, Duke. I'm very glad that you found it. And I'm glad that you think that it's a good thing, because this is the 30th episode. So there's 29 more you can go listen to before we're back here next week. I can't believe we just blew through this hour. It really does just get faster every week. But I'm glad that the banner and the logo. Yeah, it was time, I think, just for a change in general, and it's, I think it's a little cleaner, a little professional, a little more minimalistic, but, you know who we are. You guys know who we are and what we're doing. And Sunday, it's going to be an interesting, fun, cool thing. So, 30 hours of Bard advice. We're on hour 30. So, we're going to get out of here, gang. We're going to wrap things up. So, before we do go, just another reminder to please send your questions, complaints, concerns, queries, compliments, considerations to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. If you want to get yourself some merch, you can do so at manshorts.com. And if you want to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, you can do so via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo at Yazik, YAHZICK. I will be back here next week, same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The audio for this podcast will be available tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard. And that's it. That's where we're at, folks. I appreciate everybody joining. I hope that you have a fantastic weekend and a great week. And we'll see you next.